You will always want to get ahead if you can, and so with those things that they gave me, I would take it to my QB training, and we would use the cadence, we would use the drops, we would use all those things. So that's not something that's on my mind throughout the process of when I actually got here.
Yeah, Will Hewitt's been awesome in this whole process. Us being able to have great conversations with him, and he gets it. He's trained a lot of guys, and he's elite at what he does. And so it's was a pleasure to work with him. So he was working on our stuff, a little bit, cadence and those types of things, and the footwork that we want. And that's been a good process for us.
Now, I had a chance to talk to Will Hewlett just a couple of minutes ago about what that process was like for someone he's been training since Caleb was in the 7th grade. Hewlett knows Shane Waldron because he's trained other NFL quarterbacks, and they went through a very collaborative process to get Caleb Williams ready for the NFL. And to make that learning curve less steep, it's getting the terminology down, getting the verbiage down. If a thunder route is called a thunder route in Shane Waldron's offense, Hewlett's going to teach it that way to Caleb Williams. And he told me that Williams is the most prepared, ready to be pro that he's ever worked with, which is no reason, no doubt why he's already out here impressing Bears staffers at rookie minicamp, as he's been very intentional about this process of preparing for this very moment.
That will be huge considering they've already made him QB #1, and we're just in May. Williams and Rome Odunze made history when they were drafted by the Bears last month. Chicago going with Williams, #1 overall, and then taking Odunze with the 9th overall pick, marking the first time in the common draft era that a team drafted a quarterback with the 1st overall pick and then took a wide receiver later in the 1st round. Odunze says he loves the idea that he can learn this offense with Williams together. How can these two guys thrive together, Kevin?
Well, to me, not counting the quarterbacks, Odunze is probably the most impactful draft pick of 2024 for this season. Here's the reason. His football IQ is off the charts. He was on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the late catch he had against Oregon, which beat obviously a rival, one of the most famous catches of the season last year. And he talked about the late hands he showed to beat that DB, to use a DB's body weight against him. And people from the NFL reached out after that clip went out and said, that's a 10-year wide receiver move. That's the kind of thing where a guy has to learn in his 4th, 5th, 6th year in the NFL how to do it. He was able to do it in college. That's impactful. Justin Fields was failed as quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And what we're seeing here is that Caleb Williams won't be. Geography is destiny for a quarterback in the NFL. No one said life was fair, and quarterbacking is not fair. Caleb Williams will not have the same struggles as Justin Fields because of the infrastructure. 3 #1s, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. By the way, Keenan Allen, one of the guys the Rome Odunze studies his release and says he can't wait to learn from him.
That's perfect. Now they get to grow together there. Odunze can watch Keenan Allen, talk to him in the receiver room. Let's bring in Mina here. And Courtney brought up Shane Waldron, the new play caller here. Yeah. What do you expect to see? What will he bring to this Chicago offense?
Yeah, he's an interesting case, Kevin. He comes from the Sean McVay tree with the Rams, and then with Seattle, worked with a couple different quarterbacks there. And you saw some offensive changes with Russell Wilson moving to Geno Smith. I think there are some things we saw from the last year or so that translate for Caleb Williams from that Seahawks offense. A few things. One, they actually rank near the top of the NFL in use of the pistol. For me, that's a way to get to the play-action game with Williams, who has more experience throwing out of the gun. Another thing you saw a lot of is designed rollouts, 4th in designed rollouts with Geno Smith. We know Caleb is very good at throwing on the run. 10th in motion rate, which is so helpful for a rookie quarterback, giving him those man zone indicators, attacking leverage. All of these things, I think, are sort of aspects from that Seahawks offense I expect to come with Shane Waldron. Something I think that might be different. The Seahawks consistently ranked under him near the top of the NFL in using 12 and 13 personnel, multiple tight ends on the field. With the Bears, given how good this 1-2-3 is at wide receiver, which Kevin alluded to with Rome Odunze, you don't need to use multiple tight ends just for the sake of doing so. So I think for the key for Waldron is adapting his offense to the skills of the players and making sure he has the best possible lineup on the field.
Yeah, and look, to the points that have been made, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, these are high-level rookies that are expected to come and contribute right away. The Bears have done a lot of work on and with Caleb Williams to make sure he's ready to hit the NFL ground running. So this rookie minicamp, when you talk to coaches, both there in Chicago and elsewhere, rookie minicamps are about putting these guys in positions where they're a little bit uncomfortable, to give them stuff to do that maybe they haven't done a ton of in order to find out how far along they are in those aspects, right? How much work needs to be done on the developmental stuff. Matt Eberflus talking earlier today about the fundamentals and how good Caleb Williams is at the fundamentals, but the certain aspects of it that still need work are going to be the emphasis this weekend and as the OTA period moves along. They feel he's very advanced, so they want to iron out whatever there still is to be ironed out before they open up in September.
A franchise that's eager, be able to go out there and, try to help the team win football games. And obviously, it's new everything here. The DMV, this fan base, everybody, they want to see wins. They want to see excitement, want to see joy. So, hopefully that we could go out there, we could do it as a Commanders franchise, as a team.
This fan base is starving for a winner. For much more on Washington's rookie minicamp, Commanders reporter John Keim joins us now. John, what kind of impression did Daniels make in his first day out there?
Well, Kevin, first of all, let me tell you, I've covered this team for more than 3 decades. I don't recall seeing a media contingent this large for the opening day of a rookie minicamp ever. That's where he talks about that fan base. I think that's indicative of where the interest is. As far as what we saw, it's what the Commanders also saw during the draft process that led them to him. You saw the looseness, smiling, laughing, a little bit of dancing during a break, but you also saw the deep ball accuracy. And then at times you saw him directing some players where to go. That shouldn't be a surprise considering he's been in this playbook for more than 2 weeks now. In fact, the day after the draft, he had his first press conference in Washington. On the plane ride home, he was standing up in the middle of the aisle, going over checks and calls from the playbook. All this is why new tight end teammate Ben Stinnett said he has an infectious personality and that, quote, he has the it factor. And then receiver Luke McCaffrey, who comes from a famous football family, simply said he's a stud.
Okay, gotta protect the stud here. That's one big storyline, John. Of course, this offseason, heading into the fall, can you protect the Heisman winner? All right? Because you look at the several additions made to this offense, a pair of new starters on the offensive line here. Washington also bringing in Austin Eckler, pairing him with Brian Robinson in the backfield. Oh, by the way, Cliff Kingsbury returning to the NFL as the Commanders' OC after spending last season at USC with Caleb Williams. And we are back here with Kevin. Specifically when we look at Cliff Kingsbury and his scheme, how do you highlight what Daniels does best?
Well, I'm going to use a bunch of fancy stats to say what Luke McCaffrey said a lot better. He's a stud. Yeah. He's a stud. He just said it all. I think too often we conflate good rookie plans with training wheels or babying. Do not baby Jayden Daniels. Look what he was able to do from 2023 to 2022, okay? Vertical routes were his specialty. Mike Denbrock, the LSU offensive coordinator, said in 2022 they called too many routes where a receiver's back was to the goal line. In 2023, they started running seams down the slot, vertical routes, all the things where it was receivers going down the field. And what happened? Magic. Jayden Daniels had 90 explosive plays. Those are plays over 20 yards. That beat Joe Burrow's record for a college season. And he had 87 in 15 games. Jayden Daniels had 90 in 12 games. That's special stuff. That carries over to the NFL. Let him cook.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kevin, because we're talking about a quarterback in Daniels who's extremely experienced, obviously, was running, full field reads at LSU. This isn't a quarterback who needs to be babied. I also think something that's going to help him as he transitions to the NFL and starting immediately is going to be his rushing ability. And it maybe isn't his, it's not certainly not all that he does as a quarterback, but it is a very, very important factor, not only in why the Commanders drafted him where they did, but how they can use him year one because of the way it impacts defenses, the way it clarifies coverages, the way it changes the number count in the box. And I'll say this about Cliff Kingsbury, who's his play caller. We think of him as this air raid, spread it out. That's what he did in Arizona in college. But when you look at Kyler Murray's first couple of years in the NFL, I thought Cliff was extremely effective at calling a designed run game for his quarterback. who in those first 2 years finished second amongst all quarterback in rushing yards, rushing first downs, yards per carry. He would be first if not for a guy named Lamar Jackson. So I think Cliff can really draw upon what he did with Kyler for Jayden, who is extremely, extremely potent with the ball in his hands on the ground.
I don't think there's any question about his running ability. I don't think there's much question about his ability to throw and throw deep from the pocket. My question in Washington is about the pocket. As Nagandi mentioned earlier, the protection for Jayden Daniels is going to be paramount, and they made some additions on the offensive line. But none of those additions were clearly starters at left tackle, where they're still looking for an answer. They're in rookie minicamp. All eyes are going to be on Daniels, but they got another rookie, their third-round pick, Brandon Coleman out of TCU, who they're going to actually give a chance to compete for the starting left tackle job because everybody else on the roster has basically been a backup at that position. They have to figure that out over the next couple of months, or else Jayden Daniels is going to be doing a lot of off-script running once the season gets going.
Start in Minnesota with Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. O'Connell's offense no longer features Kirk Cousins. The team drafted Michigan's J.J. McCarthy in the first round. He's coming off a natty. McCarthy's situation could be the best one of all the first-round quarterbacks, considering all the Vikings' weapons. And just when you think we've run out of Kevins here on this show, we've got another one. As we welcome in Vikings reporter Kevin Seifert. That is producing, Chris. Kevin, how do you assess, how does J.J. McCarthy assess his first practice as an NFL quarterback?
Yeah, it's interesting. They actually have worked together before. This wasn't their first time. Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy have worked together. They had a pre-draft meeting and evaluation in Ann Arbor where Kevin O'Connell basically put the first day install into McCarthy's head just sort of as a test to see how he did it. They drafted him. They had a couple Zooms with the coaches to really start to increase and accelerate the familiarity process. And here's what J.J. had to say about it.
I would say it was simple because it didn't feel like my first day. You know, I've been going over the offense for a long time now, so being able to go out there and actually perform and execute it, that's new, but it was nothing that, you know, was overwhelming or, you know, too much.
So after practice, there was we were watching J.J. McCarthy run gassers, and we figured he was just trying to get back in shape after all the pre-draft work that they were doing. But it turns out there was a little bit of a competition. If there was 3 or less balls on the ground during a 16-play rep session, then that means the defense was going to run gassers. But if there were 4 or more, then J.J. McCarthy was going to run gassers. So you see what kind of first day it was for him.
Another Kevin making us smarter on this program. Thank you so much, Kevin Seifert. Let's continue to talk about Kevin O'Connell's offense. This is going to end eventually in the C's. Trust me. Mina, when you look at J.J. McCarthy, right, and what do you anticipate specifically with the challenges he's going to face in this offense with these weapons?
Yeah, I think it's really just expectations, especially coming off of the conversation we just had. What you talked about, how good this offense is. All offseason, ahead of the draft, we were talking about the Vikings being a dream destination for any of the rookie quarterbacks for a reason, because of the personnel, the wide receivers. Now you got this run game with Aaron Jones. It's a good offensive line. And of course, yet another brilliant Kevin calling the plays. And J.J. McCarthy coming from an offense at Michigan that had some shared DNA, that under center play action with the wide zone run game. But the thing is, he's still a rookie, and he's stepping into Kirk Cousins' shoes, and Kirk Cousins was playing at quite a high level when he got injured last season. And I think it's reasonable to take a pause and expect some growing pains for McCarthy. And during that time, to me, there's going to be an onus on the defense under Brian Flores to sort of pick up the weight. It was a defense that I thought really overperformed relative to some of their talent issues last year. And in this offseason, you go out, you get Jonathan Grenard from the Texans, you sign Blake Cashman also from Houston, Andrew Van Ginkel, you draft Dallas Turner. Ideally, they don't have to blitz on every down. I mean, they're still going to blitz a lot, it's Brian Flores, but they can lean more on that 4-man rush and hopefully bring a level of consistency as J.J. McCarthy acclimates to the NFL.
I think that in general, J.J. McCarthy is a young player in football terms, very young. One of the youngest we've seen in comparison to everybody else in this draft. There's some elder millennials in this draft. Look at Bo Nix. He had 1,200 more attempts in college in his career than J.J. McCarthy did. There's just some proof of concept there with the older guys because of the COVID year, because of the portal. J.J. McCarthy hasn't done a lot of things like throw outside the numbers very often. He had a 27% uncatchable ball rate last year outside the numbers. That's one of the worst numbers among draft-eligible quarterbacks. Over the middle of the field, he was 5th in the nation. So let your offensive skill guys be your best friends early. Grow in the system, don't make mistakes, but there's a lot of learning to do because you just hadn't done a lot of football at Michigan as far as quarterback life processes go. So let your weapons be your best friend and just grow in the system, don't make mistakes.
You know how you can add. Falcons opening rookie minicamp today. It's been 15 days since the team shocked many and took Michael Penix Jr. 8th overall, despite signing Kirk Cousins this offseason. Here's Penix on his mentality coming in as a backup to Cousins.
Just being myself, each and every day. I don't feel like I have to, try to be anybody else or try to go overboard to, just prove my leadership, but just be myself and, just lead by example. And then also, whenever that time comes, just being able to, talk to the guys, spit a few words to the guys, just to help everybody improve. We all want to win, it's not no, higher guy, lower guy thing. I feel like, that's what I like about this team.
Back here with our crew, Graz. So let's take a look at Atlanta's plan. What are you hearing is their plan here? Because Kirk Cousins coming off an injury, right, and his Achilles, and then you've got a rookie there in Michael Penix. How do they plan on doing things and approaching camp?
Well, I think, Kevin, what you're going to see is a fair number of first-team reps for Michael Penix throughout this offseason and possibly into training camp because a number of reasons. One, Cousins is working his way back from that injury, and the head coach, Raheem Morris, talked today about what he wants to see and what he wants to be careful about with Cousins coming back. And then the other thing is once they get into the season, it'll be all Cousins taking the first-team reps all the time, and they want Penix to have gotten enough that, he's prepared to be the backup to fill in should something happen to Cousins. So my understanding is that's the plan as of now, with the one disclaimer that what we've learned about the Falcons so far this offseason is that their plan at quarterback can change literally in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, I want to know what Mina thinks about this plan, considering, okay, if this was a guy that's familiar with the wide receivers, I get it, but Kirk Cousins is his first time with these wide receivers as well. What do you think about these reps?
Michael Penix Jr. has an incredible arm. He's going to look amazing this summer. He is a dynamic leader. You saw pictures of him at the Senior Bowl, like rallying everybody around him. This is all amazing and thinking about Michael Penix Jr., but it makes life even harder in terms of managing this very abnormal quarterback dynamic. And I think it's yet another reason why I remain befuddled by the Falcons' approach to all of this, because let's game this out. Say Michael Penix Jr. does look fantastic this summer and Kirk takes a while coming back from injury and maybe he struggles a little bit at the beginning of next season, and that's totally realistic. You don't think there are going to be players, fans looking to Penix Jr. saying, hey, we drafted this guy 8th overall. Maybe he deserves a shot. And I hate that that's a negative, but it is, because this is the situation that the Falcons have put themselves in. It is yet another reason why they are walking such a tightrope when it comes to this quarterback succession plan.
The reason that I loved the Falcons so much a month ago was because I thought over the last 2 years, if they had more investment and credibility at the quarterback position, they would have won the division. They're going to lose the division this year because they have too much investment and credibility in the quarterback position. I think you signed Kirk Cousins to give him all that money to win in 2024, and then with the 8th pick in the draft, you start planning for 2026 and 2027. It just makes no sense. A Dallas Turner, who comes from a great program, is ready to play now, has great athletic testing. He would be such a difference maker in the trajectory of that franchise, and yet they start doing this side quest, this side mission to figure out the quarterback thing after Kirk Cousins. It never made any sense. It's frankly, if you're a Falcons fan, heartbreaking. I just know Falcons fans, and my heart's break for them. So I just don't know what they were doing. I don't want to relitigate all of that, but what I'll say is that if Michael Penix looks good in the summer, Kirk Cousins has no equity in that locker room. He's never met a lot of those guys. It might end up being a problem.